Death is the end of all things, and today we're going to make it the beginning of something truly terrifying. Welcome to my Elden Ring Death Mage build, where we'll dive deep into the spells and abilities that control death itself. Whether you want to bring down your enemies with burning fire or unleash devastating death magic, this build is all about embracing the inevitable end. Let's get into it. So what exactly makes a Death Mage? Well, this build revolves around a unique combination of sorceries, incantations, and most importantly, the Death Poker weapon. Unlike traditional sorcerers, we're not just about raw magic damage here. We're about inflicting debilitating status effects that slowly break down your enemies until they can no longer fight back. If you love the idea of slow, creeping doom, then this build is for you. The weapon, we're going with the Death Poker, and this really is where the build shines. Dealing with both frost damage and magic damage along with a varied moveset, this thing really burns through bosses' health bars. We've also decided to pick up the Commander Standard, which will give us an extra 20% buff to our damage along with 20% damage negation. Along with this, we just need one more buff, which is the Howler Shibiri. We'll require a seal to cast Howler Shibiri, however, this doesn't matter which seal you've gone for, however I've gone for the Golden Order seal. Howler Shibiri will give us the extra 25% damage boost. For staffs, you'll want to go with a staff that scales well with intelligence. Here we've gone with Lusat's Glintstone Staff, which offers some of the best sorcery scaling in the game. Now let's go over some of the spells for this build. The main spells you'll be using here are Terra Magica for that extra 35% magic boost, and also Ancient Death Rancor, which sends out a number of orbs to hunt down the enemy and deals a very high staggered damage, giving you time to get off the high damage with the Death Poker. Now, for a Death Mage we want to look the part, and for this we've gone with the Knight's Cavalry Armor. We've also gone for the Black Knife Hood, as it gives that edgy look. Honestly, you can go for whatever armor set that you want here. There are armor sets in the game that will boost your stats, such as the Sorcerer's set and Rani's Hat, but we're here for pure fashion and Death Mage look and feel. For talismans, we have gone with the Godfrey Icon, which will boost the damage of our Death Poker abilities and also our death spells. We've also gone for the Ritual Sword Talisman, which again boosts our damage even further when the HP is full. You just got to make sure that you keep it topped up during the fight. The Shard of Alexander is also a key one to have here. This again boosts our damage even further of our Death Poker skills. If you are early game, you can kill Alexander when you first meet him and get the lesser version of this. Finally, we go on the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman just to ensure that we can take a hit. Being a mage, we're not really looking to get hit very much. So for stats for this build at level 163, I have Vigor at 50, Mind 22, Endurance 25, Strength 16, Dexterity 17, Intelligence 80, Faith 23, and Arcane at base at 9. This is mainly for a New Game Plus build, but for the first time through, this will still work perfectly well. And these are stats that you'll just have to allocate to as you progress through the game. For Vigor, this can be a lot lower on this build than most other builds, as some of the time you're going to be walking and keeping your distance away from most bosses and firing spells off to stagger them. However, you can boost this if you feel like you need a bit more damage resistance. Mind is a lot lower here than for most intelligence builds, but eventually you will want to increase this, so if you do have any spare points, then this would be where to put them. However, we will still want to invest heavier in the below stats for more pure damage. For endurance, we don't really need much here. For this build, it doesn't take much stamina to use either the weapon skill or to cast the spells. Strength and Dex are both quite low, as we only really need these to get the minimum for wielding the weapons for this build. Intelligence here is your main stat, which ideally will need to be at 80 to give you the maximum damage output. So at the early game, I'd start pumping this stat as much as possible. The faith stat here needs to stay at 23. This will allow us to add 10 extra points when we use our Flask in order to use Howl of Shibiri. And finally for Arcane, we don't need Arcane for this build, so this can stay at base. For our Flask of Wondrous Physick, we're mixing the Magic Shrouding tier for that extra damage boost, and we're also going with the Faith Knot tier. They also give us the extra 10 Faith that we need in order to cast Howl of Shibiri. So how do you play as a Death Mage? Well, you first need to activate the Commander Standard and also drink your Flask. We'll then be able to activate Howl of Shibiri, and that's all of the buffs for this fight. The strategy is then up to you. If you feel confident enough to get into melee range, then the Death Poker should finish the boss in 2 to 3 hits with the skill. However, you can also keep your distance and rain death magic on the boss until they stagger, allowing you time to approach and finish them off with the Death Poker. And that's it for the Death Mage build in Elden Ring, a slow, methodical approach to magic that turns enemies into walking corpses. Whether you're in the lands between or taking on invaders in PvP, Death Mage is a force to be reckoned with. If you enjoyed this guide, make sure to like and subscribe for more Elden Ring build guides and gameplay tips. And of course, let me know in the comments if you have any questions or other builds you'd like to see. Until next time.